Right?
All right,
Are we
we're good.
recording?
We recording?
Yes.
All right, we're good.
Okay, welcome back. Apologies for the delay. We reconvened to open session at 7:20. There was no action taken at closed session. We'll do a flag salute. We have two wonderful visitors, Melly and Ashley.
Okay, please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we got item number 6, community input on agendized items. The public may comment on items listed on the agenda, including the consent calendar, presentation, discussion, committee, and action items. Do we have any community input on agendized items?
We do not.
Sadly, we do not. Okay, we've got item number 7, items for consent. We're going to do multiple minutes from the regular meetings of the OPA Board of Directors on January 24, 2023. We have a series of personnel reports, and it's recommended the Board of Directors approve consent items A and B. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve consent items A and B.
Thank you, Member Travis. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. We'll go into items for presentation. Item number 8. So let's school update.
Yep. Go another way, or I can see it. Is that it? You wanna go? Okay. All right. We have a team tonight. Very excited. So with me, I have Nally Matthews and Ashley Taylor, and they are 6th grade students at our SOC campus. And they were chosen. I reached out to Miss Roney, who is our PAL advisor, because I wanted our PAL students to have an opportunity to come speak with you tonight. And so she had suggested these two lovely ladies. So we're going to run through a quick little update on some things that have been going on here at SOC. Let's see if I can get the clicker. I'm notorious.
You can kind of shoot it back at Nelson or you
Oh.
can just shoot it back at Nelson and Nelson can hit.
Nelson, click. All right. So we want to give a huge congratulations to our South Orange County campus. Not only did we get the official word that we have been named a schools to watch, we have a team that will be heading up and presenting in Monterey, my goodness, in I think 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. But we were also named a California Distinguished School. I know you guys are very familiar with that, but this past week we were able to head down to Anaheim for the recognition ceremony, and a shout out to our Saddleback Valley campus as well, who received both of those honors too. So very exciting. Mrs. Merlette was able to join me for kind of the morning celebration and the pictures, and we even got to meet Mickey Mouse. That's what our littles on campus were most excited about. I did. They were excited about that. They were not excited about that. All they wanted to know is if we got a picture with Mickey Mouse, and Mrs. Merlette made sure we got that picture with Mickey Mouse. So just very, very honored and proud of both of our campuses for just all the hard work that we've put in the past and then this year.
Can you do a round of applause for that?
No, I'd like to do it myself, but there we go.
Okay, so for Blackwells, we saw a huge record of how many items were purchased this month, which is 650. And our PAL students support Blackwells by assisting teachers during their visit and fulfilling the orders that middle school students are able to place online.
And those sales, actually, the 650 just came from middle school students. So you guys are able to purchase through either the computer-based app, or there is a phone-based app, And that's what Powell does a phenomenal job of being able to fulfill those orders and deliver them to the classrooms. And then all of our classrooms, TK through 5, actually get to go and visit the store, which Powell students also support the teachers in getting them in and out as quickly as possible. So our Honor Society has done a wonderful job of supporting Blackwells and making sure that we are constantly updating it with items that the kids want. So I think that was probably the reason for the sales this month. Nelson. All right.
Okay, on February 9th, SOC celebrated the 100th day of school in both TK and kindergarten. Champions were able to dress up like they were 100 years old, and they participated in different activities throughout the day. We have wonderful parent volunteers who helped assist with the centers and celebrate the milestone.
So really fun tradition that we've been doing.
Okay, so recently on February 10th, SOC was able to welcome our Lunar New Year Lion dancers to the campus. This has been a long-standing OPA tradition, and it is a fantastic way for our champions to see how other cultures celebrate the new year.
So this is rescheduled due to the weather, and the kids were so excited. We weren't sure the reaction we were going to get from them, and they said it was probably one of their favorite days that they've had it. And it was just a quick, I think it ended up being 10 minutes of them actually dancing and with the drums, and the kids absolutely loved it. So we were really excited to be able to bring this tradition back. And a huge shout out once again to Honor Society for helping fund this, and Miss Trong and Miss Wang, who really kind of planned the event and made sure that we were able to celebrate this year. All right.
For campus beautification, our gardens got a beautiful refresh. Thank you to all the parents who came out to prepare our garden for each grade level to plant in the spring. We pulled up weeds and added an additional 2 to 3 inches of soil to each garden. Our new butterfly enclosure is set to be delivered soon, and thanks to our Honor Society, we have a ton of gardening supplies ready for our champions to use. Each grade level will begin planting their beds in the next few weeks.
Okay, Kids Heart Challenge. As a school, we've raised over $11,000 for the American Heart Association. Mr. Cowan's class is in the lead with the top class for dollars raised, and so far, third grade has the whole money raised for the most money. Miss Bova and Mrs. Martinez's class have done an amazing job motivating their champions to join the mission.
And actually, Mally and Ashley were 2 of our champions who presented alongside Audra at our Kids Heart Challenge kickoff assembly for all of our grade levels. So being able to get up in front of our student body and to be able to share about Finn's mission that we've been supporting, gosh, for 3 years now. We've been doing about 3 years. So it's great to see.
On February 17th, some of our 4th grade champions got to experience a day trip up to Sacramento, and some of the highlights from the trip was the plane ride, painting
Always, yeah.
summer sport, and Coach Barton's favorite, the California State Railroad Museum.
And I know
Some of our board
I
members.
was
We confirmed the Brown Act.
But Coach Barton has been accompanying our students on this trip even back when he had his own child in 4th grade. So it was nice for him to be able to go again. And he said just the kids had a great time. It is a long day. And always the highlight when I was talking to some of the kiddos is the plane ride. They love the plane ride.
And the drinks on the plane.
Very fancy. I didn't hear about the drinks on the plane, but I heard the plane ride.
A lot of kids just raised their hand when it took off. Wee! That's crazy. Yeah.
They're really excited to be able to bring this back this year, and a huge thank you to our board members who supported this to make sure our 4th grade champions were able to experience this.
Don't look so worse. You don't look any worse for the wear.
I know you survived it.
Absolutely.
All right, and then some of my favorite things to highlight at each board member is always going to be those classroom visits. So I love being able to get into the classroom, both Mrs. Merlette and I. So right here we have some of our kindergarten champions, and they have recently implemented leveled centers between both classes. So they found some common time throughout the day, and they divide all of their students into small groups, and they'll rotate the different centers throughout the week. And in these two little pictures above, you can see students are working on just various tasks, which can include just basic phonics skills, some letter recognition, and then focusing just overall on early literacy skills for our kiddos. So it was just something that our teachers saw a need for, and we're trying to figure out the best way with timing and kind of manpower to be able to meet the needs of all of our students. And so they have gone above and beyond, Mr. Rectine and Miss Bova, kind of prepping all of these really fun and engaging kind of hands-on activities for our champions, and the kids are absolutely loving it. And what's even greater is they are going to be tracking their progress by doing some different assessments every couple weeks to make sure kids are making that progress, and then they can adjust the groups as needed. So it's always very fluid. And then I think we have one more classroom visit. Sorry, Nelson, thanks. So this was Mrs. Bussett's first grade classroom, and this was probably one of my favorite lessons that I've seen so far this year. And so her class was working actually utilizing our Amplify Science curriculum. And so the kiddos had planned and conducted an investigation to determine the effect of placing different objects made out of different materials in front of a certain light source. So as you can see, each group had a flashlight. They actually had to, it was an engineering task. So our Amplify curriculum centers around different engineering tasks that students kind of have to solve the problem. So and I'm going to read a little bit too. For this particular task, they needed to create a dark objects utilizing a puppet show scene. So what they were doing in this particular lesson I saw was they chose one of the materials, cut out their puppet, and we're testing it to see which created the dark shadow that they would need. So it was a great hands-on learning activity. Mrs. Bess had very easily kind of prepped everything ahead of time. So it was very, very easy for them to follow along. And then they record all of their data and observations in their science notebook, and then it builds on each other as the days go on, ultimately when they'll have their full entire puppet scene that they did. But kind of tying into our champion profile, this lesson really made sure it focused on that collaboration as the students were working with each other, their critical thinking skills as they were trying to figure out the different materials that they created their little puppets out of, which was going to allow or block the light source, and then that communication with each other too. So just overall a fantastic lesson. And then I have just one more to highlight some of the upcoming events. And so it has been busy. I feel like it's always been busy, but that's a good thing because it means we're doing wonderful things for our students. So we have our ASB assembly coming up in February. We also have Blackwells that will take place again at the end of this month, beginning of next. We're going to have our Taekwondo board breaking ceremony, and then our second graders will then start Taekwondo as well. Kids Heart Challenge is still ongoing, and we will have our jump event that will take place March 3rd coming up pretty soon. We are participating in the Festival of Wales Parade as well, our band and color guard champions. Middle school dance you guys have coming up as well. We're going to have majors right before spring break. So a lot of wonderful things coming up, all mixed into when our champions are learning in the classroom. And with that should be our last slide. I think we were under the 10 minutes. Any questions?
Blackwell's is the PBIS, that's how they get.
Yeah, so Blackwell's is actually the student store. I think it was named after one of the stores over at Oxford University. And then the PBIS Rewards is the app that we utilize, and the kids earn their scholarships or the points, and then they're able to redeem those at Blackwell's. And
So
it's
that
worked out great.
620, comes from good behavior
Yep,
from kids, not
meeting those
paying
camp
money.
expectations.
Yeah, that's
No,
important.
yeah,
That's
definitely
important.
not. So they're able to earn it for their showing compassion, honesty, accountability, being mindful and prepared. Yeah, so spell that champ. Believe it or not, those little ones remember it.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Anything else? Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brickley. And have you have give us the middle school update? Thank you.
You never thought I'm going to be able to see that well enough, so this time I brought my iPad with me just in case. Right. Good evening, everyone. My report tonight will be brief, I hope. I just wanted to kind of update you a little bit on the middle school, where we're at and things that have happened very recently. We had our parent information meeting for the middle school for the parents who are not currently involved with OPA. And these are the topics we covered. We had great conversation as we went through the presentation. We had a lot of questions provided to us in the chat. Dr. Henry, Dr. Kernan, Adam Wright, I believe Carrie was there answering questions. We had a whole bunch of people answering questions. But the things we covered in particular, school of choice and public charter schools, an overview of the 3 sites, the 2 current and the 1 coming, the need for expansion, which I think was really pretty impactful because it's in essence the progression of need for our middle school age students and the increasing numbers. Our accolades and achievements, of course, the OPA mission and vision, theory of multiple intelligences, the champion profile, our new middle school bell schedule, which I will show you in just a second. I briefed you on it previously, but now we've finalized some things. Course of study, our programs, EL, GATE, and the Scholar Academy, enrichment, PBIS, and the application process and lottery. The application process or the enrollment window has opened, as I'm sure you know, opened February 15th, and it will continue through March 16th. And I'm doing this from memory, but I believe at present we have 393 current OPA students who will be middle schoolers next year who have already filled out the application, or those parents have. We are missing 175 right now, but those numbers are very good to start. But equally important, we have 115 applications from folks who are not currently with OPA. So we're in very good shape. This is the bell schedule that we have finalized. And the thing I really want to draw your attention is that the 6th grade bell schedule has lunch at 11:54 to 12:24. And then they go to the passing period, go to 5th period. Whereas the 7th and 8th grader bell schedule, and that's Monday through Thursday, the 7th and 8th grader bell schedule is a little bit different. They do lunch a bit later. So we've split the lunch off. 6th graders eat separately from 7th and 8th. And then, of course, all of them are on the same schedule for Fridays. Okay. We have a new mascot. It's been quite a journey, and the kids and staff were fantastic. The process began with a voluntary essay prompt that went out to students right as we were getting ready to go on winter break. We had 24 students in grades 5 through 7 participate. They wrote essays about their choice of mascot. The top 3 essays at each grade level were finalists, and they were placed on the ballot. And the mascot selection committee of 3 teachers and 1 administrator scored the essays using the CASP writing rubric. And as I said, they had their mascots placed on the ballot, and the voting was pretty intense. But when it was all said and done, Eagles was the #1 mascot choice. So we are now the OPA Eagles.
They didn't win the Super Bowl right after we picked it up.
Now,
At least it's like a predator, not the prey.
Yes.
So we have the Huskies, the Eagles, and what's the other?
Well, we have
Good
2 sets of
question.
Huskies. Good question. SV became the Huskies first. We
Yes.
likely are going to have SOC revote
Okay,
now that we have the middle school mascot, because there was some, controversy over the first voting of the Huskies, so we're going to let them revote.
yeah,
one other, can it not be prey for the husky? Like, let's have some parameters around.
Gonna have to.
the cooperative mascot.
Right.
But what's the Eagles do, I guess.
What's really fun though is the kids that I've been talking to just since we announced this. They have all kinds of ideas for the mascot costume and for logos and stuff. So it's gonna be a lot of fun as we develop this.
Are they all like Champ the Eagle, Champ the Husky? They're
Yeah,
all Champ?
they're all champ, they're just different champs.
Okay.
It's like, there's Bob.
Middle school staffing is taking place as I speak. We have an office manager, Auralia Borodino is going to be our office manager at the middle school. Registrar interviews have been taking place. It has not been finalized yet, but we are narrowing the field definitely. And the middle school dean position will be flown in March. Our teachers and other support staff from SOC and SV have expressed their preferences for placement. And Dr. Kernan and other folks up here are working with them to make sure they get where they should go. We have a good number of teachers who want to come to the middle school, which is really exciting. We are also working right now on the master schedule for the middle school. Thank you to Dr. Kernan, who's roughed out the vast majority of it already. But we are fine tuning and getting ready for when we open.
Can you, sorry,
Yes.
explain a little bit more about how that works, like HR wise, like your position is moving to a different school? And so, can you just explain that a little bit more? Like their choice or?
So
Yes.
we put out so every staff member receives an intent to return form. They received them back, right, kind of when we got back from winter break.
Okay.
And so it has, I intend to return for the next year, or I'm retiring, or I'm, resigning. And then they make 3 selections of different grade levels, kind of in preference where they'd like to go, and then select the different school sites that they would want to go to. So, you could say, next year I want to be in 3rd grade as my first choice, 2nd grade, and then 1st grade. And I'm good with working at SOC or SV. And then some of them put the middle school and the different grade levels there. And so we kind of go through and we had staffing meetings last week with all of the site admins and me and Dr. Henry and Eva. And we kind of looked at all of those different, preferences of where people wanted to go, different places where we needed people. And we started kind of initially plugging people in. And then we'll go back and have meetings. The principals will go back and have meetings with each of the staff members probably later in March and give them their tentative assignments for where they're going to be next year. So it's a lot of feedback from the staff kind of saying where they want to go, and then us kind of plugging in the principals first kind of plugging in where they thought that that people would fit in the schedule.
John, when you said master schedule, are the minimum days and holidays going to be different across it? No. Okay.
No, they will match.
Similarly be to what, okay.
Yeah, we're going to match the other 2 sites as much as possible.
Yeah.
To
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The calendar's already posted.
Okay.
That's what, so the days or the calendar, and then the master schedule would be what falls.
Kind of the
within those
period,
days,
you know,
yeah.
when seventh grade, what periods seventh grade math are gonna be in. what
Not just the
period
master
is-
schedule, oh, right.
Yeah,
My
using
apologies.
school terminology.
It's been 1.5 years, it's still haven't done us.
The combination of factors involved, credentialing, desires, all those things. They all play parts in this, but the one thing I want to say that's been really gratifying is working with Dr. Henry and Dr. Kernan. And the fact that the kids' needs are going to be met first.
Love it.
Middle school town hall number 3 is coming up on February 27th. And this will be sort of a clarification meeting, adding a little bit of information to what we've already provided so far. We will be talking about the application process again. In fact, tomorrow I'll be sending out an email to all of the families who have not filled out an application yet. And
We're gonna keep hounding them every week.
we're gonna hound them. I'm also going to let them know, hey, this is how many kids we would have with these extra families coming in if they were to come. So fill out your application, you know, that they're here and they want those spaces.
Getting put on the post lottery list this year with over 100 new students wanting to come in. If you don't fill out your application, it's likely that you won't get a spot because we have so many outside middle school applicants that we don't usually have in a normal year. We usually just have kind of a handful of middle school applicants each year, and now we have 115 so far. We're only in week 1 of the application process. So we really want to make sure that families know that it's not like sometimes in the past where, oh, well, if I didn't put in my application, I'll just go in the post lottery list and I'll get a spot. It likely won't work that way. So we really want to make sure that all of our families who want to come back next year to the middle school turn in their application on time.
So can we, for
No, please.
clarification purposes, there was a priority given to students that exist. So that follows into the middle school as
Yes.
part of our charter, right? Like, I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
for
but
the-
they have to turn in their
Okay.
application.
Say
If
that
they get their application in by March 16th, they pretty much automatically have a spot. If they don't, though, then they lose that preference. And because we have so many applicants, those applicants will actually, if they will get those spots, and the people who miss it will fall onto the post lottery list and have to wait for all 115 of those new applicants to get a spot before they're able to reclaim their spots. So that's why
We
it's
will make
really
sure.
important this year to make sure.
We call everyone.
Yes.
And that everyone,
It's a personalized phone
Yes,
call
gets a
if they haven't
personalized
done it
phone
by the
call.
last week.
What is the capacity?
We have, right now, we're looking at 580. We're staffed up to 600. So we currently have 580 students. We could add in students up to 600. Every one of our current 5th through 7th graders went in, that would leave us with an extra 20 open spots. We know, people move or things like that. So we'll probably have a few extra spots, probably somewhere between 20 and 30 possible open spots as we have it staffed right now.
This is an N of 1, but I heard that some people think that the middle school campus is going to be in Irvine. And so I just don't know where that started,
Where
but
is that?
yeah, but we can assertively say it's going to be within the confines of SCUSD, but maybe in your email tomorrow, if you want to mention that.
That's news to me.
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
But again, these are the topics that we'll cover coming up on February 27th. And again, we will continue that question and answer session through the chat and verbally wherever we can, because it's been very helpful for our families.
Can I just add one more thing about the level of outreach that I hear you're doing between last meeting and this meeting for those existing middle school families? It's amazing. I feel like this tends to be one of those things, no matter how much you do, something's gonna happen, right? So I assume you're just documenting,
Yeah,
right?
They're
So when
documenting
that
each time that,
happens,
especially when we do the phone calls,
okay,
we'll document each time
Yeah.
for those, so that nobody can come back and say that they didn't know anything about it.
Very important.
And, but very important, definitely.
And obviously, because you haven't shared yet, the location has not been determined, but will be inside the Saddleback Valley.
We are
That's our
doing
understanding.
our,
Okay,
we're meeting with them to negotiate tomorrow.
and when is the drop dead date that we could find out the location?
April 1st would be the final date that they have to give us a final location determination.
Okay.
And I have a couple of questions for you. What's the communication plan to get the bell schedule out to the students that exist and the parents that are incoming?
We'll be sending out a packet of information of middle school info to all of our families. We're kind of working to make sure that we have everybody on board, and then information will start going out to everyone.
So is it dependent on the student giving it to the parent?
No.
Okay.
No.
But because we have parents who aren't even part of our schools right now, it'll be emailed out to parents so that they are agreeing. I mean, there may be some things as well that are brought home, but it'll always be emailed out as well.
And that is all I have, unless you have other questions.
Good job.
Good luck
Yeah,
with it. Good luck with the
exactly.
next few months. Great job.
It's gonna be fun.
Okay, Dr. Henry.
Today, I will be presenting on two different topics. So I may stop in between and see if there's any questions. The first one is the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Grant that we've mentioned a few times, and we talked about getting feedback from our specialty teachers. And the legislation requires that we present this for discussion to the board, and then at our next board meeting, we will ask you to approve the plan. So you'll learn a little more about that, and that way you have time to provide feedback if you are interested in that. And then also, as requested, we will be talking about our virtual learning program. Next slide. Okay.
It works usually.
Okay.
We did.
Okay, so what is the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Grant? We also call it the VAPA grant, sometimes the Visual and Performing Arts Grant, because that was really the intention. We also call it the Kitchen Sink Grant sometimes, and it became nicknamed that at a lot of our state meetings, because even though it was intended at first for arts and music, it started to expand how schools or LEAs, districts could use it. So then they said, well, you can buy instructional materials. And then it pretty much became, you can use this money for anything, including retirement benefits and things like that. But because we are fiscally responsible and in good shape, we really wanted to use this as it was intended. One of the things that makes OPA so special is our enrichment programs, our specialty teachers, all of those things we do above and beyond. And since this is additional funding, we decided to use it for that purpose. The funding was apportioned, the apportionment was determined by our 21-22 ADA. So the funding has fluctuated a little bit. We were originally given about $1 million, a little less than $1 million for both schools. And the first payment of that we did receive in December, and then the second payment was slotted for spring. However, because in the meantime, in November, Prop 28 passed, which is also another big grant for arts and music. The governor is holding back the second payment. And so we decided to make our plan based on the first payment. And as additional funding comes in, while they're still determining with Prop 28, you'll get additional information. So we're spending what we have now, knowing that there's more to come. We do have to, again, develop a plan, get feedback, and then have it board approved before we're able to spend any money. Our professors have been in a series of meetings. We've got a lot of input from them. And what we're trying to do is to spend this first allocation this year. It's cleaner that way because it has been allocated for our two sites. our two current sites. So we want to make sure we're spending the money that first half during this school year is our hope. We don't have to. If some carries over, it's okay. But knowing more money's coming, going from 2 to 3 schools, it's probably better to expend the money this year.
So sorry, you're saying a plan needs to come to the board and then you gotta get the money spent hopefully by June. Is that
A lot of
what
it
you're
we
saying?
will. And we've been working with the with all the teachers. We have spreadsheets, we have links, we have all the amounts, and I'll
We have
show
all the
you.
stuff to buy, we just sort of need to pull the trigger.
Yes. Yeah.
So you didn't give us a lot of time to make all this happen.
So again, we wanted to focus on our specialty courses as the block grant was intended. We allowed them to brainstorm things that they wanted, looked at the amount of the grant, which again, this first half is $495, $491. And we did a basic breakdown looking at the needs, about $150,000 for music, $150,000 for STEAM, which does also include art. $150,000 going towards physical education and sports. And then our other specialty team, world languages, it's more academic in nature. They don't need as much equipment, but we did want to include those language programs and we let them brainstorm. And so a little less than $50,000 for those programs, which again, isn't their curriculum, it's just supplemental things to help them. And we do, we know that more money will be allocated in the future to complete future purchases. So here is what our teams came up with. This is approximate, but for our music, the $150,000, they requested choir risers for each school, music stands, again, for a few hundred students, music chairs, and then the rest will go towards musical instruments. We did some pricing out. We're hoping we can get a good deal, but with the over $118,000, we priced we could get about 40 to 50 musical instruments. And the ones that they were requesting include string instruments as well as band, flute, trumpet, sax, all of those were on the list.
It's nothing electronic, like digital music.
They're actually in the STEAM one.
Oh.
There was also a STEAM, it's not listed here, but in their list is a STEAM music, digital music piece to it as well.
We did have keyboards, but music teachers never really used them. We still have a few left over, but it doesn't seem like something that they have really been using very much. The kids kind of like the actual non-electric.
When we did our survey as well for what kind of electives did our families want, we dove deep into the music. So again, we are known for having a marching band, and but also there was a desire for us to have strings as well, and a jazz band. So that came out in our survey.
Can I ask you a question about the budget? Did you give them $150,000 and say, this is what your budget is? Or did they say, here's my wish list of?
They gave us the wish list first.
Okay.
We kind of totaled it up. And then it pretty much came out pretty evenly. So then we brought it to cabinet. Here's everything that they're asking for. And if anything, they shot below the 150.
Because I was gonna say, it would be nice for them to have their wish list, right?
They
What
did
they
the wish
want.
list and they totaled them up. I also went, they've had several iterations of this. They also went through and put what they wanted the most.
Yeah,
Prioritized, thank you. They prioritized the list. And again, knowing that we're going to get another
Hopefully another double.
same amount or more, that I will keep these wish lists as well. But I will say, going through them, we're able to pretty much take care of most of it. We would just be about buying more of the same, right? Like more
They're shooting
instruments.
for the stars though. They didn't, they didn't curb their.
They were-
Okay.
Yes. So for
I
STEAM,
want to know what you.
yeah, no, definitely. So for STEAM, we already have one kiln that we don't use right now, apparently. So
There is
they
a
wanted
kiln
to-
at SOC. Who knew?
They wanted
It's-
to purchase, but it's more appropriate for middle schoolers.
You found it.
For safety reasons. So they wanted to purchase 2 more kilns, so we'll have a ceramics program. At all 3 schools.
Who knew?
They wanted additional 3D printers, a lot of 3D printer filament, which I was trying not to do too much of the consumable, but that purchase of the 3D printer filament has come up multiple times, so let's stock them up while we have some money. There was middle school robotics programs, which was the Vets IQ, their competitive robots, as well as just general art supplies for the new art classes and school-wide art programs. A big purchase was iPad minis so that they would end up having classroom sets at 3 different locations or sites. And then they wanted a lot of miscellaneous things, so I just kind of rounded that up. Hydraulics, motors, electronics, things kids could put together, as well as other types of robotics for younger students. And pretty much every grade level has different levels. So you have Dash robots, Sapiro, Indy, Osmos, Code and Go, and Ozobots. And I'm learning a lot about robots these days. And then, back here. Sorry, can you click? Oh, there you go. And then physical education and sports. Their list was on a spreadsheet, probably about this long. So there was a lot of little things. And so, but when kind of totaled up the columns, it really did hit 3 different groupings of $50,000. So it's pretty close. Some of the bigger things, because I couldn't give an exhaustive list, were like they wanted soccer goals, more permanent soccer or better soccer goals, not those temporary ones, although they wanted those too. Sound equipment, which was nice. I was talking to Mr. Brickley. He did he went and did some observations of PE today and was talking about how amazing it is that they went through the sound equipment. They're getting kids over here and everybody knows what they're doing. So they did ask for that. PE equipment, and I put things like for the little kids, like hula hoops and whiteboards and yoga mats, and they wanted foam bowling sets and bean bags and PE jerseys in different colors so that kids could play, and hurdles and 100 more things. And then for the sports, and you had more sports equipment, and that's a little bit more expensive, but things like basketballs and hand weights. They wanted to add pickleball equipment, including nets and the rackets and badminton rackets, handballs, tennis balls, volleyballs, dodgeballs, soccer goals, and bases. So those were some of the things, but the list again was pretty exhaustive. I'm just excited that we'll be able to get all of these really neat things. Oh, sorry, I won't get too far. And then world languages, met with them a few times. They really wanted things like some extra books in Spanish for a classroom library so students could practice reading in Spanish. And then Mandarin wanted something similar, but it was more like a reading system where you had books and an electronic pen that they could put over the books and it would read them aloud to them in Mandarin. Those Chinese New Year costumes that you saw that we paid to have people come in for the dragon, and then our SOC talked about the lion costumes, so they wanted to order those for our Chinese New Year. Other miscellaneous supplies, about $8,000, like storytelling kits and puppets and animal kits. Mandarin wanted things like calligraphy sets and tea sets, Chinese yo-yos, writing materials like this reusable parchment paper for them to practice. So those are our planned purchases. And let's see. It's not working for me anymore, Nelson. Can you click it, please? Okay, and so that was the end of that presentation. What questions do you have?
Okay. So you talked about splitting it between SB and SOC. how is this gonna impact the middle school? How is this gonna be moved over?
So the reason why we're trying to spend the money this year is we currently have middle school students on the campuses. And the money was intended based on that enrollment on our current middle school students, current elementary kids. So we are making the purchases for our current this year, middle school programs and elementary programs.
And they'll follow.
And
Then they'll
the-
follow the
That's-
kids.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
They'll follow the kids. So
Okay.
Keep part of it, Mr. Critically, make sure that they get it to your campus sometime.
I will make sure they get it to the campus. If this is we're talking about storage of a lot of this.
Oh, yeah.
Where is it gonna go?
Yeah, I don't think Carrie and Adam really want all this stuff to stay on their campus. They want to get it off so that they don't have to store it.
And then I know that we did things for, like the lion dance and stuff to support the Mandarin curriculum. Is there a way to do something like that for the Spanish curriculum as well? Because I see all these ideas for Mandarin, I think that's wonderful, but I don't know that there's the opportunity with the Spanish as much. And I don't know if there is something that we could do, but
The opportunity
Maybe
is
there-
definitely there. We met with them a few times and had them put together their wish list. I think the funding that we're providing is a little more than they anticipated, so I rounded up their library costs, right? And
okay,
things like
but
that,
they can move it.
but they can move it.
Yeah.
Because it'd be cool to do something like flamenco dancers or something where we could bring some of the Spanish culture if we're supporting the curriculum with languages and stuff like that.
Any other questions? So we will bring that to you. Again, we're presenting it for your feedback and we'll bring that to you at the next meeting for your approval.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. So I was looking at all of these, I think one of the things we wanted to do was to create. Like a step change improvement in either content we have or infrastructure that we have, and I think most, if not all of these sort of satisfy that, so that makes a ton of sense. I think there are some things that, you know, again, this is not my intent to prescribe, it's just an idea. For example, you know, like the iPad minis, we have a very good way to buy iPads separately as well. We have different tech funding for that. And so then, is this really the best use of this, or should we be taking it from the other acorns that they're storing and then see whether there's something else you could do? That sort of pops in my head. It's like, should we get another 3D printer, or should we? I mean, $40,000 will buy a lot of iPads, right? I mean, it's iPad minis, that's like 80 iPads at least. So something for you guys to think about. And then the second one is for world languages. I've often wondered that when we go deep into Spanish and Mandarin, are we missing out an opportunity to give exposure to other cultures out there as well? And so is there a possibility to not have a full-fledged curriculum, but like a world, I've heard from you guys before that we used to have International Day.
Yeah.
We actually still do International Day at each one of our school sites, and we're actually expanding it to be an international week. So that's kind of a time where
Yes, I wonder if
we
that's.
highlight all of those.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some fund, I mean, if, not that I'm saying people are looking for ways to spend here, but it should be allocated some funding to really up the game on, because our culture, our school is such a, I mean, I'm not lobbying for Indian culture for sure, but I'm just saying that our school is such so many different cultures that, and those things are not cheap because you can't get like those performers to come, for example, from LA or whatever. And so I wonder if that's something you guys want to consider, just as a thought for you to consider.
It's interesting that you say that because some of those conversations happened during our LCAP meetings, and when we brought in, we had a lot of great parent input at our last meeting with actions and services. They went through everything that we do now. What should we up the game with? What aren't we offering? And then we're doing another leadership meeting where we're looking at everything that the parents said and what, for LCFF funding, which is a different pot of money, right? Can we, and that would, I think would be things like performances, things like that, because it's more ongoing and we're trying to have, for that grant, be one-time purchases, things. Even though, as you saw, there was some consumable in there, but really, like, let's go for some big ticket items.
Yeah, because like Honor Society was able to fundraise for the Dragon Dance, right? So presumably this will do it next year too. So could we take some of that money and say, honor society continue to fund it because it's a very popular program. So and let us find some things that are new to school, right? So just consider that between now and next month, that'll be.
I'm looking at it with LCFF as well.
I have a couple questions more. Computers, so we have computers for the elementary school. And then there's computers in high school. And middle school could bridge a gap between elementary school and high school. So I'm wondering if, just to think about, maybe moving away from Chromebooks in middle school and doing something a little bit more that would transition well into high school.
I know she's gonna wanna respond, so I'll respond. What I was gonna say first is, with those CTE courses, we are, that we're planning CTE being career technical education. We're looking at digital media. We're looking at having some media centers through other funding sources for technology that can have, so it's not quite answering your question, but it's as an aside to have some specialized like media centers that kids can come in and use high-powered things for digital media arts and those kind of things. But for the everyday computers.
For the everyday computers, it is tough to have. Chromebooks are easy for us to manage. Because we do need to put them on our management software. Our kids are using them, we want them to be secure. Chromebooks are the easiest, very easy for us to secure and to manage. And also for our tech department, we do have a lot of fixes that happen and things like that. Most schools, even through high school, if they're giving computers, they're giving Chromebooks, not PC-based computers. Just because it's really difficult to manage that many, especially with kids, they get broken their screens. We're replacing them on most high schools have Chromebooks. My kids have Chromebooks, yeah. Almost all high schools have Chromebooks, not.
I'm so surprised. I didn't know that.
Unless you're bringing your own, and then parents will send, whatever computers. But for schools giving out, almost everyone just uses Chromebooks.
I had no idea, because
Yeah.
we have a different situation at my son's school, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
You think a MacBook Pro's for everybody?
no, I'm not thinking that. I'm just thinking, I just hope that we're able to bridge that gap, whatever, if there's
But
no
then
gap.
having those
then-
media centers and things like that
Right.
to actually
Right,
provide more high-powered computers on campus for students to do things. We're looking at computer science, CTE type classes, multimedia design,
Makerspace.
digital media, and then our elementary schools, even, maker spaces with more high-powered computers that the kids can actually still go in and use. It just wouldn't be their everyday computer that they're dragging around and
got it, okay.
banging in the
That helps
backpack
me.
and stuff like
I
that.
totally thought they were using something completely different in high school, so, great.
Okay.
I have a question,
Okay.
sorry.
No, please.
I appreciate you mentioned planning for storage, so I was thinking along the lines of, have you done analysis of total cost of ownership, especially for the items that are gonna require consumables ongoing, so they don't end up just sitting when we run out of grant money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure that's why we, like, for things that are, yearly things, performances and things like that, we try not to use grant money. Same thing with staffing and things like that. We try not to use grant money.
Yeah, for the Prop 28 as well, it is ongoing. 1% of the state's budget is supposed to be, I can go back, I think it was.
So this is like a
Yeah.
seed, so they're giving us a whole bunch of money to seed this, and then what everyone voted on in the last election, the Prop 28.
Is
That's
ongoing.
a smaller amount of ongoing funding to fund those things that are more kind of ongoing material costs. It won't be this amount over and over and over again, but it will be for replacing the filament for the 3D printers or things like that. So kind of a smaller ongoing amount.
I didn't hear what you said.
Sorry, it's allowable to use it for maintenance, for consumables.
Consumable.
You don't always have
This
to use
grant?
stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. This grant, again, it became the kitchen sink grant because then they said, well, you don't even have to use it for arts and music. You can use it to pay for teacher retirement or offset other costs. And I know a lot of people are doing that, and that's not the spirit of the grant. And we have some of those other things. taken care of. So I'm pleased that as we're expanding, we're in this position where we can use it for some really great stuff for kids.
Like,
Hey. OPA virtual learning program, sometimes called VLOPA. I fought it at first and I
coined it as.
I fought it for a year, but I've now given in. So, that's our virtual learning program. That's what I call it. Okay. Nelson? Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit about our program.
Lopa, is that what that's? Amy's nearby. It's called-
It's nearby, it's called VLOPA.
We actually had a little comedy act when I first got here because, you know, I was taking this program on. I was so pleased with it. And you kept calling it VLOPA and I'm like, it's not VLOPA, but it's okay now. So our program, I just wanted to point out a few things. There's going to be some, I'm going to start with all these highlights and then we'll get into kind of the reality of what's happening right now and where we hope to go. So, I do want to say that our program is a very strong program. I personally really believe in this program, but also it is award-winning. We last year, the California Pivotal Practice 2022 was given for our virtual learning program for Saddleback Valley, and we showed the schedule and the intervention and everything else. Our schedule is very unique. We have synchronous learning every day. So our students do meet in with teachers every day. And then they have asynchronous time. So they're not sitting in front of their computer all day long. They have both. And then there's small group learning on Friday. So if we need to provide intervention, enrichment, we also have students who are accelerated in our program. And I'll show you this little clip of the schedule in one of the future slides. Also, our virtual learning students do have opportunities to attend in-person clubs. They can come to events. We have focus groups for our professional learning. You may have heard us mention those. Our virtual learning teachers do have their own focus group, and they found that the virtual learning students maybe didn't want to be part of the clubs, but they really love virtual learning meetups. And so they started those last year as well. For the virtual learning program, if we're getting into the technical side of it, it is low overhead for costs. It's an average of about 10 ADA would pay for a teacher. Middle school is a little more costly depending on the credential of the teacher in the program. So we did have a teacher who was credentialed who could take on all of 8th grade, and she was also an accelerated math teacher. So she covered a lot. Sometimes for 6th grade, we may need someone to do the math and someone to do the, you know, math science and then ELA. So it could be a little more costly for middle school. And then our program does give us some options to better serve our families. There's been some unique circumstances where our families have been able to take advantage of the virtual learning program. And it's been helpful all the way around. Next slide. Thank you. Here are some highlights. I did ask the virtual learning. I had our 1st and 2nd grade teacher, that's Miss Smith. She shared pictures of the virtual learning meetups. I believe there's 4 grade levels that are doing a meetup this Friday. And then some of the work, those are Picasso, they did art masters for Picasso. And then also, these are just our 1st graders did a report on animals and animal facts. So that's one of the slides on skunks. I thought was kind of cute. Next slide. Thank you. Here's the schedule. The schedule is also on our website. I just, for size, I did skip the asynchronous, but you just know that it's the opposite. So your AM cohort, Monday through Thursday, are grades K1, 3, 6, and 7. And they are synchronous with their teacher from 8:30 to 11. In the afternoon, from that 12 to 2:30, they are asynchronous, and then it switches. So our PM cohort, they are asynchronous in the morning, means they're working on their own. And then from 12 to 2:30, they're meeting with their teachers, and that's grades 2, 4, 5, and 8. Fridays, I think really help to make our program special. We have targeted small groups. Our middle schoolers also do take Spanish, get virtual check-ins with our Spanish teachers as well, depending on their level. If they're sixth grade, it would be Spanish A, seventh Spanish B, eighth grade Spanish C. And then there's also small groups. So like for second grade, I know that one of our professors was doing small groups by reading levels. Sometimes they'll do social emotional learning groups. So they're very flexible the way that they schedule their small groups. There we go. So I will say it has been a journey. Our virtual learning program grew from COVID school closures and having to make those adjustments really before I got here of shifting to virtual learning to in-person back and forth. I remember coming at the end of that school year. I started May 24th. And so it was the end of the year and I was able to watch some of the virtual teachers because they were teaching from campus. And I remember telling Dr. Kernan, like, this is amazing because I had come from other districts where virtual learning maybe didn't have the same impact. And this program, like, we should bottle this. This is fantastic. And so we really did in 21-22, the legislation allowed for families to choose. And I think we had 5 days to switch a family so they could go back and forth. If you said, I want my kids to go virtual this month, we had 5 days to do the transitions with the teachers, have a meeting, intake, make it happen. And you could go for 2 weeks and say, I want to go back. And then we had 5 days to get that transition caught up on work. What's the grade? Like all of that communication. So we did have a lot of families who went back and forth. We also had a lot of families who just stayed virtual the whole year. And they were able to keep their seats in our OPA program, which means that in reality, they had 2 seats because we were saving them a seat and not taking anyone off the wait list. And they were also in a seat in virtual. And so that happened a lot and quite often. And our numbers last year, if I'm remembering correctly, always fell between like 165 and maybe 180 for the entire year, depending if we were in a surge or not of COVID, they fluctuated. So for just this summer, before the 2022-23 school year, so this last summer, legislation was passed, which no longer required schools to do that virtual learning request automatically. And so in order to keep their seats and not have 2 seats, we put out a survey. We told our families that they had to choose, and most of our families did return to in-person learning. And then I just want to share in general, I was surprised. We went to some charter meetings where a lot of the charter folks in Orange County, they are only virtual programs. They don't have seat-based. And it was interesting. I felt that after COVID, we may have this great desire for virtual learning programs, but a lot of them, there's oversaturation of the market. And it was continuous that most of the virtual learning programs are a lot smaller now.
Even the district programs in our area where, for example, Saddleback had almost 500 kids in their virtual learning program last year, and now they have less than 200 in their virtual learning program. So because of that change, COVID kind of decreasing, everybody opening up virtual programs, it has sort of, like Dr. Henry said, oversaturated the market, not just in charter schools or private online, but even in all of the district online academies.
Next slide. So here are our total numbers. And this has also fluctuated a bit, but they are small. Because we had this over the summer, we already had lottery. So the legislation changed in the summer. We already had a full plan to go full virtual. So we kept the program open. We looked at the staffing and the students and made adjustments where teachers could do multiple grade levels. And we switched times to accommodate different groups of students and so forth. So currently we have 36 students in our virtual learning program as of right now, and we have 5 teachers. So we are taking a little bit of a loss for our virtual learning program.
So their capacity could be 12 students per grade level with 5 teachers?
Yes, because-
That's the hope.
And the capacity for
Yeah.
virtual learning is it's usually there was a cap of 25-1 for virtual learning. Teachers could only have 25 students. With the new legislation, they said that it can't exceed your average class size for that grade level. We have teachers doing multiple grade levels. So it really does, because teachers are doing multiple grade levels, it evens out to about 12-14-1, or 12-14 in each
Because
grade level, because they have
cohorts.
2 cohorts, so you combine it, and it
And,
makes it
yeah.
about 25-28 students.
So what we're doing now, we did with our material revisions that we've turned in for the elementary schools, making them now elementary schools. We did turn in that students in our virtual learning program now do have a preference for the lottery. I feel like if families are going to be on our wait list, and they really want to get in, it also benefits us if they're receiving an OPA education in the meantime from our virtual learning program, if that's what they choose. So that's now a preference for the lottery. So we think that could increase. And we're looking at targeted branding. And we've had a lot of discussions with our virtual learning teachers on how to do that as well. So our next steps, we are monitoring applications right now as they're coming in. We currently have 171 applications for virtual learning. However, many of those applied for all 3 of our schools. So really it's about how many of those are going to get seats, and then how many do want to stay with the virtual learning program if they're on the wait list. So, and then we'll analyze the enrollment and the potential for enrollment in order to staff the program. We are looking at keeping an elementary program, and then we'll really have to look at the numbers for a middle school program, because as you can see, we currently have no 7th graders. The 9th, the 8th graders will be leaving. We have 3 6th graders that could move up, and 7 if they chose to stay with the program. We did encourage them, please apply, so we can look at our numbers. And then also it'll be interesting to see what happens with those 171 applications we already have as of today. We looked this morning.
Can you clarify, let's talk more about the lottery part. So if you are on the wait list, you will be sent an email that says, if you want to join the virtual academy, you will then be placed in a higher priority for open seats if it should come up. Is that what we're saying?
Well, it's a priority for the lottery. So when we were doing our PIM meetings and things like that, we were kind of letting people know that there is a preference for our virtual learning program. So as of right now, those 171 students, if they get into the virtual program, they'll keep their wait list standing. So say they're number 50 to go into SOC. And they get into the virtual learning program, they can attend the virtual learning program. That will actually move them up on the wait list based on that priority. If they start going to the virtual learning program, that will move them up in
And so
priority.
somebody else would move down.
Would move down if they've attended our virtual learning program.
What is our incentive to have this? I mean, even if you have hit your goal of 12 students per grade level, that's 108 students for 5 teachers. That's way less than our student ratio. Like our student ratio is 31-1, right? On an average in the
It'll be a little bit lower
It'll be
next year.
28 next year.
But this is like 1 to 20,
So it's
right? So
25, yeah.
so what this one 36, obviously that's not what you want to continue.
Yeah.
But then if you even your goal of hitting 12 students per grade, like why do we want to do it?
So it does provide an option for us to, I mean, it is a lower overhead than our normal students who are seat-based. So if we hit our goal of having, say, 25-1 in each grade level, we will actually kind of make, I guess, if you want to say, make more money off of those students than having 28 in our seat-based program, because there is more overhead in our seat-based program. We have the
Other than
facilities, things
staff
like that.
salaries, you're saying,
Because they're sort of on top, so we can have as many, we can have up to 20% of our enrollment of virtual students, and they don't take any classrooms. So they're sort of above and beyond our maximum amount of students that we can say hold at SOC. We capped SOC at 660 next year.
I
So
also.
if we get extra, they're actually on top, ADA on top of.
and how do you allocate that between SOC and SP? You just do the 40.
So we actually do it by grade levels to make it kind of even with the number of students, and also to try to even out our ADA. So SOC has more students, more income than SV does. Right now, it's kind of even because we do K-4 at SOC, or I mean at SV, and then 5-8 goes to goes with SOC. So we split it. To split it in half within a grade level is difficult because the students have, or the teachers have to have 2 separate grade books and 2 separate attendants. So that's why we sort of do it by grade level. And then that sort of evens right now, it kind of evens out the numbers, or where we kind of started at the beginning of the school year, it sort of evens out the numbers between the 2 school sites. Because in the grade levels, we start out with more middle school students. So it's kind of even between the 2 sites.
And if I could answer why we want to do this, I feel from hearing from the parents that this does give a lot of parents a opportunity for a high quality education that is virtual. I take all virtual phone calls. Interested parents get forwarded to me, and I hear a lot of stories of, there are a lot of virtual programs out there where they never meet with the teacher. They work from home, and they might meet with the teacher for an hour a week, and students are on their own. And we deliver a very high quality program. And that to me is what it comes down to. Also, our families that have had some hardship have been able to take advantage of our virtual learning program. And it's really helped their families as well.
I have a question about the lottery. I think I'm really struggling with this, because if you were privileged and you have the ability to, your family to stay home and watch you be virtual, then you get a higher priority than somebody who just went into the lottery and is just taking their chances. So me, I'm a stay-at-home mom, no problem. I want to go to OPA, I will 100%, but if I'm a working parent, that's not gonna work. And as a working parent, I wouldn't want to lose my spot because somebody else was able to stay home with their kid.
There are a lot of different levels of preference is the way that, and again, this lottery is a little bit newer to me.
So this is
Yeah.
this is one step above just the general people who are applying.
Because you have, do you live in
We need to
the
flesh this out.
school?
Well, we're going, I mean,
district?
so just in all transparency, in order to change our lottery preferences, we have to go through another material revision. So this was already approved in the material revision that we went through just recently.
It sounds like you're suggesting that it could be manipulated in some way.
But
No,
There's
I'm
always-
saying
yeah.
that it doesn't seem fair, is what I'm saying. I'm saying it doesn't seem fair, and I didn't know that this was my fault if you guys all read it and I missed it. But it just strikes me like a person shouldn't lose their spot because they're a working parent and they can't do their kid can't do virtual. Like, that person shouldn't get priority over my kid if I'm a working mom. That's how I feel. So-
I understand, working parent. All
It
the years
just-
my kids were in school too, I get it.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem.
There are so many different preferences of, do I live within the school district, do I live within
That
that?
makes sense to
Do
me,
I-
because because you live in the district, you get a higher priority to go to a school. Whether you are able to stay home with your kid and have them to virtual does not seem fair to me. So whatever that is, I'm just saying,
I think the thing,
how did I miss
get
this,
that.
is what I wanna know too, it's like, where was it in the material revision? I mean, I just,
And
I
you talked about the
I missed it.
lottery.
Yeah, I mean, I have a more fundamental question, which is that, if we need to acknowledge that this is not low overhead, this is, unless you guys show that, this feels like this is something, because if this was helping a lot of people, then you'd have a lot more enrollment than 36. Right, and so we may be keeping this program to help a small number of people, which is fine, but that should sort of be a stated goal that, hey, this is to help out parents who are not comfortable sending their kids. But I don't know if this is like a long-term, especially if you get into a cash crunch. Yeah, I don't know if this is, now for me, I have a question even before that, before even the lottery preference generally, but I'm curious, I mean, I would love to understand a little bit, because I know you guys saying you want to grow the program and get it to 12 students per grade level, but I'm not convinced that even at 12, it's like a good use of our resources, unless we say it is to the betterment of the broader community, which is fine. We should acknowledge that we're doing it because we're trying to help out some families, right? But then you have to get back into things like these where, hey, are we allowing parents to park their kids here? That's not happening. Clearly, that's not happening because we don't have so we don't have people putting their kids in virtual program, hoping that that'll move them up the lottery. That's not happening right now. Just because you can see the enrollment is only 36, right? It's not 108 like we want to get to. Yeah, I mean, like we should. I mean, I don't know if this is the board thing or not, but it's certainly.
And we are really analyzing, and that's Dr. Anderson. One of the things that we're looking at, because the middle school is more overhead to have this program at the middle school level. We've already sort of talked about, is that a good use of our funds? Is it a big enough program in order to be a feasible thing for the middle school? And even, even kind of looking all the way down, one thing that we didn't have a lot of interest in TK, and a virtual learning program, sitting a TK kid in front of a computer for 2 hours a day probably isn't great. So we cut TK out as well this year, and basically made the program, starting at kindergarten. So we are kind of looking at different things that, and we've had a lot of discussions about this and kind of keep looking at the numbers. This year, because we had already sent people through the lottery, we had already said that we were going to have this based on what the legislation was back in, back when we did the lottery in April. We were sort of bound to keep that for those families who had who felt like this was going to be an option going into the summer last year, because the legislation changed in July, so that didn't give families much time to really look at other options. But that's why this year we've been kind of looking at it earlier, so that if lottery rolls around, we look at the applicants, it doesn't look like it's going to be a feasible thing, then we can have those conversations, and we'll bring that to you guys as well, to the board, because it would be kind of a bigger decision to we've had this virtual program at OPA. It's been very small always, since I've been here. We've had different iterations of it. We've had,
It was called Independence.
But we should,
yeah.
but we should not let that dictate our decisions going forward, right? But what I'm saying, but the saving grace, it appears that it's a good program, but this could be a big risk for us too. If the program doesn't go well, you're actually turning people off the OPA brand because the program doesn't go.
Yeah.
It looks like you're saying it's going well. That's a saving grace, but certainly something that maybe after you guys finish the lottery of this year, we would love to have you guys come back and say, hey, we did the math, middle school, we're gonna take it off, like you said, elementary, it's extra overhead for all the infrastructure and branding issue, or no, we're gonna keep it, it would be love to. And then the lottery issue, I don't know how to answer that question.
And for the lottery issue, we can explore it further right now without going back and doing a material revision right now. We're kind of stuck with it for this lottery.
I didn't realize that material revision included this piece of that, so that's my bad, I missed it. But I think that we really do need to think about what we're saying to our population. our wait list too.
So one of my questions with this is, where does this program live? Because it kind of lives at SOC, it kind of lives at SV, you know, the middle school, like where, because, and so I wonder if, you know, like I really, to Paul's point, like once the analysis is done, like where should it live? Because to me, I think that it probably has, you know, my kids were in it last year. Full transparency, my kids were in it last year. Phenomenal local experience, hands down, can say that. But if it's not really connected to anything and it's not have a home or a place, it's just gonna be a stepchild. It's gonna be an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I'm worried because it's down to 36 as if that's what's happening now. Is that, you know, they're changing, but you know, I remember the independent study, they used to be very popular. I mean, and that was the back door into SOC.
It was.
Way back when. And a lot of people took advantage of that and they did their independent study at SOC and TK,
Yeah,
just so that they could
so
get.
they could get it. So it's always been and in fact, it was even a more flagrant.
Yeah,
back then.
exactly.
We actually
And
just
I've heard it
cleaned it up.
wasn't as quality of a program.
And it was a lot of packet work and things like that. So this sort of I guess, in some ways legitimized that extra priority to get in through the program. But again, you know, we want to make sure anything that we do, we want to make sure especially you guys all know me, I want to make sure it's got some fiscal value. And it isn't going to be something that we're spending a bunch of money on that we're not getting that same benefit for how much we're, you know, the resources that it's taking. One thing, the goal is 12 students per grade level, but in a previous slide, because of the difference in overhead, it actually only takes 10 students total per teacher to cover the salary of that teacher. So in a way, it is less overhead in a lot of areas for OPA, for virtual learning kids. Now that you guys said it, now I can't not say it. For our virtual learning kids to be in that program. So it does sort of cost us less. But again, if we only have 36 kids in the program, then even that lower overhead isn't, you know, balancing out fiscally. So
Well, exactly.
That's why we need to really look at where, if we're going to keep the program, what's it going to look like? What, you know, how many resources is it going to take? What different grade levels? And then in looking at next year, to your point, one of the ways that we tried to give them a home was to split it by grade level. The year before, it was basically whichever school you were at, that's the, you know, where you were housed for the virtual learning. And so it was all over the place. It was crazy. So tried to kind of condense that by moving the grade levels so that if you're an elementary virtual learning student, you're at Saddleback Valley. So you get the Saddleback Valley communications, you come to the Saddleback Valley events, you're connected with Saddleback Valley. If you're a middle school student, you're more connected with the SOC, get their communications and their Sunday messages and things. So it did kind of, I think, help a lot. We got a lot less, you know, issues with parents saying, I'm getting this communication, which one am I supposed to go to? What school am I supposed to be at? So that I think has kind of fixed that a little bit. And then next year we were actually looking, I know the virtual learning program has historically been attached to SOC. SOC actually has higher enrollment, higher operating income, all of that. So we don't really need the virtual program to supplement SOC. If we're looking at it as a way to kind of supplement and make more ADA for the school, it actually makes more sense to attach it to SV if it's making more money or increasing our ADA, because then it balances our enrollment. Say we have 100 virtual learning kids. We have 660 kids at SOC, 585 kids at SV. It makes more sense to attach it to SV and it balances those two schools out for funding and all of those additional things. It allows us to have those two schools be more kind of equivalent ADA. So we're kind of looking at all of those things to try to figure out what makes the most sense for this program. But definitely, you know, we've kind of had lots of discussions about what's feasible, what's not feasible, what is going to be it is a great program, but
What program, yeah.
but what are we going to do to make sure that it's a great program, but not taking away resources from our other seat, because really we're a seat-based program, so we want to make sure that this program isn't taking away resources. from
Well, and
that.
it could be, to your point, it could be economically beneficial for everyone if there's a way to grow it and scale it,
Yeah.
but that's not being done based on these
Based on
numbers.
these numbers.
So I mean, that's the question is, you know, besides 12 students per grade level, I mean, what is, you know, is this gonna be a focus once the middle school is open? Is this, you know, where's this future of this program? Is this a new virtual campus?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
you
gonna
know,
go there too.
That's my question.
If you wanna go big, that's right,
Yeah.
make it your fourth campus. And then now you have your fourth campus is a virtual program campus, but. I don't understand, I mean.
Yeah, that's, I think Orange County is
That's
so.
the issue.
So then we should say, okay, then either we're doing it for the good of the 36 parents who want this. Or we
Yeah.
have to say, okay, I think it's not working out, right, I think.
And I
yeah,
think
you should
that's,
think about it.
that's
yeah.
where we're looking at those 100 and, where it's gonna be important to look at those 171 applications. If they are just applicants who clicked every box when they were filling out their application, then they're not going to go to the virtual program. They're just gonna decline it if they get an offer from the virtual program. So we need to really look to make sure, you know, what percentage of those 171 as of today applications really truly want to go to the virtual program and, you know, aren't using it to get into the other school sites or really wanting that program, or aren't just, like I said, clicking the boxes because it was an extra box to click on the application, because, you know, somebody who really wants to get into OPA, they're gonna click every box on the application thinking that, you know, is going to be what
On the
they should
website
do.
that if you join the virtual, if you check this, you have a priority,
It was in the PIM meeting.
but it's not on. like,
It's not, well, it's in the charter.
So
The
they
charter,
have to look at
they'd have to kind of dig into the
There-
charter to
but
really
there's
see
no
it.
like,
There's no big
hey, if you,
glaring thing.
No, but someone can ask, right? I mean, if I were a parent, I would say, oh, I didn't get into SOC, I didn't get to SV. I got a virtual program. Hey, what happens to my position in SOC?
Yeah.
And staff will have to say, oh, you know, you get a higher priority or you keep your seat, right? And then it's a distinguishing between, do I keep my kid in school and wait for the SOC or SV lottery to clear up? Or do I move them to this virtual program? And for me as a parent, not as a board, but as a parent, it feels like if with all this SEL focus and, feels like virtual program is like for very specialized very circumstances like COVID, for example, last year you worried about it. So I'm curious to see like, what is the archetype of parents, so we can really understand what need you're trying to satisfy, right? You're right, you're probably, maybe there is a benefit that OPA, we are financially stronger, so maybe we can afford to lose money or whatnot, but we shouldn't be losing any of our.
But I think for next year, that's the big thing. We want to make sure that we're not losing money
Right.
on the program. So I think if we are going to look at another, this year, like I said, we were stuck. We'd already said we were going to do it. But now we have the benefit of being able to ahead of time determine, is this going to be a benefit to OPA? Or is this going to be, a drain to our current seat-based program resources to keep it open? And kind of weigh the pros and cons there without finding out a month before school starts. We actually have time to really plan it
Next floor.
and really look at those applications. I mean, we have those applicants. When the lottery goes through, we'll be able to see how many of them, stay, how many of them don't get into one of our seat-based programs. And a lot of them will just decline the virtual program because they really didn't want the virtual program in the first place. Even if they think it might get them a seat, they're gonna have to accept that virtual and really, be part of the
It's a
virtual.
big shift from
Or
seat-based to virtual.
Yeah.
it's
So
a
I
big
think a
shift.
lot of parents, if they're not really thinking that they want to put their student in that virtual program, if I'm a parent and I'm looking at, it's July and I'm in the virtual program and I haven't gotten into either one of the school sites, I'm going to enroll my kid in a different program because if the virtual program isn't really what I wanted for my student. So I think, we'll be able to kind of gauge that ahead of time to be able to see that staffing and see what types of whether it's going to be a truly viable option for us or not.
Because I bet if you put that somewhere, I bet your virtual usage would just go up.
Well, exactly, that's what
Like
I'm
if you,
saying.
if you put it up there and say, hey.
And then those aren't, they may not, I mean, if we just put it up there and then everybody just does it, then.
But then but people who don't know may actually choose to do virtual, which would improve our numbers.
Yeah.
So it was in the parent information nights, which are both posted on the website. Both the video and the slide deck,
Mhm.
so they were there.
Okay, so I think you have a little bit of homework to do for the next few months.
So do we have an action when we want to have this presented back to us, kind of that update?
What do you think, like September, October, or that too early?
Honestly,
I think it's too late.
Because then we don't know.
I don't know when you know about your.
We think it would probably be more May,
Okay.
June,
Okay.
June, yeah.
because that's when we would have to make the final decisions on the program for next year. So we were,
We have to see how the lottery falls.
Okay.
Make contact.
So that would be
with
an
them.
Let's add that to the agenda for like May or June.
yeah.
Mhm.
We have multiple board meetings in June, so.
Yeah, so we can add, we have two, we can add it to one or the other.
Excellent, thank you, Dr. Henry. Thanks for being patient with
Oh,
us.
of course, thank you.
Mr. Bali is not here, but I heard.
I'm going to
Diana's gonna give us.
Briefly give Mr. Barley's overview, so I'm not, I'm not answering any questions. Just kidding. So poor David was trying to come home from Utah, and apparently they shut the airport down this afternoon, and he's in a rental car right now outside of Mesquite, Arizona. Trying to get back here.
Driving back.
He's driving, he just rented a car because the next flight they could get him on apparently was on Friday, so.
And his ski lift too.
Because it's big, superstorm Oliver is just gonna take over and it's gonna be crazy, so poor David is in the car right now. I am going to do his thing, you're gonna have to click. So we have, as usual, been doing tons and tons of campus facilities improvements, over the last, well, even just over the last 4-day weekend. I know a big shout out to Luis and Alfonso and Jaime and Jackie, and Jonathan Silva were all at the sites over the weekend, making all of these things happen while we had a 4-day weekend with no students and finally one with no rain. So a lot of this stuff can't be done if it's pouring down raining. So we added some fencing and new gates. So our fire lanes at SOC now have new full-size gates instead of just the little gates. So people can't go in and out through the fire lanes unless you're an emergency vehicle during the day. So an extra added layer of security there at SOC. We also added some kinder fencing and additional cameras. We're kind of adding cameras so that we have all of the different areas. So right now, kind of all of the different areas at SOC that we need to monitor have cameras. Yeah. We kind of expanded the kinder area over at SOC. We moved the very ugly dumpsters that were right in front of the parking lot to further in the back so that we could extend our kinder area. We extended the grass area for kinder, moved the tables, put down some more asphalt, put playground wood chips in because it was really gross sand that got everywhere. And so we put wood chips in instead of the sand. We put up some new banners and did some new striping. And we also re-slurried and striped the fire lanes. And we have, and then we did a campus beautification day, which the girls talked about in their update over at SOC as well, working on the gardens. Yeah, he's gonna play. So here's some of the pictures of some of the things that were done over at SOC. They have a little bicycle parking spots for their bikes in the kinder area, some striping along the fire lanes, new asphalt, So lots of different improvements at our SOC campus. And you can see kind of some more of the new asphalt, and we have new striping to show how to get to the back first grade buildings. So a little walkway for first graders to be able to follow back there. So a whole bunch of new asphalt stuff. And then at Saddleback Valley, we resurfaced and restriped the rear blacktop for our PE teachers. They are going to have a campus beautification day on February 24th. And this is the 1-year anniversary of their big garden project over at SV. So it's exciting to see how far that's come. And everybody always comments on how awesome the garden at SV looks, because it really does look amazing, and it's growing lots and lots of stuff out there. We also fixed some of the outdoor lighting. If you have been at night at SV, some of the lights on the side of the buildings were out, and it's really dark, like for open house on the side of the buildings. So actually, when I was walking around an open house, I was like counting the lights and then texting David with pictures, like, fix this one, fix this one, fix this one. So we got all of the lights done for the outside, so now it's nice and bright outside. And then upgrading the stage lighting with our kind of honor hall redo there. And then again, we installed some more additional security cameras as well at SV. So those I have some pictures of those upgrades, so you can see the new striping and asphalt in the back PE area with the new asphalt down there. So lots of additional upgrades there.
Is that the OPA runway there?
So OPA runway, it's actually the striping out in front of the school with the to kind of make it more clear the front of the school and make it look nicer out there when you first drive up.
And make sure parents actually stay in the right.
Make sure parents stay, because you know some do, some don't.
I was gonna ask if that really worked.
Or try it.
Yeah.
We can put as many stripes down as we want if we just don't seem to care.
Yeah.
So we do have some more upcoming improvements. We're going to be building out the rest of our classroom furniture. Now that we have the pilot classrooms, we kind of learned what works, what doesn't work. And so we'll be then looking at what to order for our different grade levels. Some more painting of the interior and the exterior. Our OPA Innovator classrooms got painted last year, but now we have to kind of extend that out now that we have the new flooring. We're also going to get our technology, some more technology infrastructure upgrades. And then after we do that, we'll be able to paint. We're looking at an HVAC grant for SV because the HVAC not so good over at SV. We got new HVAC systems all over SOC. We can control them with a computer. They're, you know, much nicer, fancier. They work much better. SV, they break all the time. They're controlled by old thermostats and things. So we are looking, the state has a specific HVAC grant right now that you can apply for. So, so David's going to be applying for that grant so we can hopefully redo the HVAC systems.
Get ready for summer.
And get ready for summer. We also got our kitchen grant. And so we're purchasing new kitchen equipment, refrigerators, warmers, ovens, all of that kind of stuff. And then discussions with Honors Society on some additional kitchen upgrades and PE basketball equipment. And then again, just planning for our middle school facility. If I am correct, there's one more slide. We do have some, a lot of IT stuff has been going on. Nelson and Jonathan and Derek have been working super hard, just updating everything from adding updates to the website to putting in new access points, switches, the cameras, really working to integrate everything. We got our Raptor volunteer management system, which is great. It allows us to kind of run the IDs of anybody, any visitors coming onto our campus to make sure that, you know, they're all good and should be coming onto our campus. And then we also are continuing to do the refresh of the teacher laptops So getting rid of some of those old computers. We had a lot of teachers who had really old Macs who really just wouldn't give them up, even though they were like 100 years old. They just didn't want a new computer. Those have now started just dying. They just won't turn on. So it's kind of forcing teachers to get a new computer, even if they love that 200-pound
Oh, we're paying
MacBook.
for the computers.
And we're paying for the computers. Yeah, they just
love them.
They don't wanna migrate
Don't
their
ask.
expense.
There's a handful that just would not give those things up. The batteries were dead. They had to plug them in. They weighed like 100 pounds, but they didn't want to have to get a new computer. So they're dying and now they're forced. But so, and the new teacher replacement laptops are awesome. Everybody loves them. So, so they're much better than the ones that we had before anyway. So everyone who's gotten one is super happy about it. It's just like getting those last holdouts to give their computers up. And that's it.
So, do you guys feel you have enough hands on deck for the middle school infrastructure?
I mean, I think, well, we're
You only know in April, but when you're gonna get to school and Jonas open in August, so do you guys?
we
feel-
are going to be, adding more staff for the middle school, facilities, tech, IT, dean. So as the spring rolls around, we are going to be starting to add those staff for the middle school ahead of time so that everybody is in place to be able to jump off as soon as we get the site and start working on it.
But, I would encourage you to even consider temporary project help if
Mhm.
necessary, or temporary folks to come and help us.
And with the technology, we have contracted with
Yeah,
people
contractors, that's what I was
who
saying.
have helped us with our current technology, our current technology upgrades that we'll be able to then use for the middle school as well. And so that's kind of why we're trying to get everything done at our two current sites
Yeah.
before summer rolls around. So that's sort of going to be all hands on deck. For just the middle school, we won't really have anything to do, with new carpets, they're gonna have to do the carpet cleaning and redoing the floors and things like that, the things that they would normally, that our
Yeah, but-
facilities people would normally do in the summer. They're not really gonna have those big projects in the summer at our current campuses, and so we will have more hands on deck, but then also looking at, contracting movers to move the stuff, so it's not our guys having to lug furniture.
When will we get the
furniture.
campus? Is that only in July, or when do you think, or is that part of the negotiation?
Part of it.
But we don't really know yet, and we don't know the condition of the campus we're gonna get or anything to even.
Yeah, I think that
It's both
that can be,
partners,
that can pose a challenge, so I would encourage you guys to come and ask for help, ask for money to hire people temporarily, it's like, hopefully, I mean, like, you don't do what you guys did, like make our middle school chancellor unpack boxes and stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
he did earlier this year for us, so. Okay, thank
They
you.
were gonna give us a location until they heard us call it below, was.
Any other questions for the operations? Okay.
Maybe that's when they offered the location in Irvine. that you talked about. Stop that. It's not funny.
All right, now, last and not least, the financial presentation for tonight, and I would like to apologize for my voice. It's kind of in and out, so I'll apologize for that ahead of time. Next slide, please.
So you're not even gonna give it a go.
No, right?
I just stopped and turned it back on, but it didn't do anything. We have the worst luck with these things. Like 3 of them.
All right, so here we have our income statement summary for both campuses as of July 31st, 2023. January 31st, I'm sorry. Next slide, please. I'll go into each of these categories. So we'll start off with revenue. For LCFF, we are on track, having received 54% of our entitlement. So we have received all of our monthly entitlement as scheduled through January of 2023. I would like to mention that there is a reduction for both sites, and that is a correction of what I mentioned at the finance committee. At the finance committee, I mentioned SV only. However, there will be a reduction for both sites at second interim. And you will see second interim at the next board meeting in March, which will represents our actuals through January as well as our budget for the remainder of the year.
Is that ADA driven?
And so the reason for the reduction is based on our ADA attendance, so.
So
we
both
are-
campuses have
Both
ADA.
campuses have reductions in attendances. We projected at 97% ADA. At first interim, we're looking more at like 95% now, which is still a good number, a great number. But for our budget purposes, we'll see a reduction there of 2%. in
We have a lot
ADA.
of kids getting sick
Yeah.
and staying.
Staying home.
But that's like the new, like,
That's the new norm.
that's a new norm. You don't
Yeah.
want kids coming to school if you
Yeah,
don't sick.
So can't,
Absolutely.
and we do, our registrars do an amazing job of trying to get kids on independent study if they're gonna be out for 3 or more days, even, you know, for a longer illness, RSV or COVID or anything, but also on top of that, I think we have, things are open now and people are able to do things, and so there's more Disneyland trips. Things like that. So we do encourage families to not take the day off.
So moving on to now federal revenue, not yet, there we go. Federal revenue, as you see in your financials, we have received 0% of our special education, which is the norm. We won't receive any of that money this year. So you'll see that accrual though at the end of the fiscal year. We'll book it as a revenue and as a receivable as well. We have received a little over 75% of our Title I funding and 25% of our Title II money. But again, just overall federal money, we have not received that through January 31st. As of today, I did receive notification. We received some other federal money of about $120,000 for both schools. So just to show you how quickly things, change month to month. For the state revenue, we are on track, having received over 60% of our revenue, and that's primarily due to our special education funding. They provide funding on a consistent monthly basis based on our entitlement. And so we received everything up through January. So that's why we're on track with our state money there. Local donations and fundraising. Overall, we will be making adjustments at second interim. If you notice, interest is well above what we budgeted for first interim. So we'll make those adjustments then, as well as donations, fundraisings, which does not include field trips. Field trips does have its separate line item there, and we'll look into field trips in a future slide. Any questions with revenue? Okay, next slide, please. So now we'll move on to expenses. We do see coming up with second interim, there could be some potential savings here in this category for salary and benefits. For SOC specifically, the speech pathologist position was not filled. So, we are contracting outside, but there will be some savings there as an example. And then shifting some of the middle school positions out of the two campuses and shifting their salary over to the middle school campus as a expense there. Books and supplies will also adjust the line items. We'll add a few dollars here and there or take away from other line items, nothing major. Besides the additional purchases that we'll be making specifically with the kitchen sink grant funding that Dr. Henry mentioned earlier. So although you'll see this increase in expense, you will also see the same increase in revenue. So it's basically a dollar for dollar there, but you will see increases on both the revenue and expense side, specifically for that grant of expenditures, purchases, I should say. And under services and other operating expenses, we'll be seeing a significant increase under the field trips expense line, as well as the revenue side of things. There's also going to be an increase for legal fees specifically for SOC. There is a settlement agreement that you guys are aware of. So you'll see that adjustment at second interim, and then other minor adjustments in some of the other lines to kind of match with more of the actuals number through January right now. And then lastly, for capital outlay, which is depreciation, I finished implementation and training for our new asset module in Sage Intacct. That was kind of like one of our last pieces to kind of close out Sage Intacct. And so you will see at the next board meeting with second interim numbers, an increase under the depreciation line specifically. And this is to basically depreciate all of these improvements that you've seen across campus with asphalt, fencing, carpet installation, all the furniture. So all of that will be now depreciated using this new module. So that will show as an increase in depreciation line as well as an increase in the fixed asset on the balance sheet itself.
And these are non-cash transactions, right?
Yes, these
Okay.
are not.
And when, and what's the method that we use to depreciate? Are we accelerating them in some way?
Straight line, yeah, just over the useful life of the cost of the project or the equipment, yeah. Any questions on the expense side? All right, next slide, please. So here I just wanted to kind of highlight and give you a quick recap of our field trips so far where we are through January 31st, again, to match the financials that are being presented to you. Through January 31st, we have received revenues from Living Tree, just under $6,000 for SV and just under $11,000 for SOC. Current expenses, though, as you can see, it's a big difference from what revenue we received. Underneath the current expenses, I listed the field trips that represent these dollars. So the first three have actually occurred already. However, most of the field trips listed here have not occurred, but they make up the bulk of the expenses. And just the big field trips, the Catalina Island, the Irvine Ranch, and the Astrocamp, just those three field trips alone make up 90% of that current expense dollar amount. So just to kind of put it in perspective where these dollar amounts are going and why these numbers are so high. And these are expenses that represent either admission or busing transportation for these field trips. And as you guys know, we haven't had field trips in a few years now, so we're not the only ones going out to all these field trips, but across, the county, there's just a higher volume of field trips, which means there's limited number of busing availability. So that competition has made the prices go a lot higher than what they used to be.
And we have to pay for them when we book them instead of before, when we used to pay for them after we went on the trip. They want full payment when we book them, or they won't hold the buses for us, which we have gone round and round with Astrocamp. So it has caused us to have, where in the past it sort of balanced each other out a little bit more, and now we have all this upfront cost that we're then kind of recouping as these field trips occur.
So just, again, through January, we do have a shortfall here, but we have projected estimated revenues for these field trips coming up. So they're much higher than what we just currently have received. And we won't see the revenue really in our books until, March, April, May, and June as we get closer to the actual dates of the field trip, which most of them are at least towards the end of the school year. So there will be some more discussion and presentations regarding field trips, but more from like a strategy standpoint, marketing, communication. So I know David spoke with some of you, so there'll be more to come, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick snapshot of just financially where we are right now through January and why it looks so lopsided. But we are anticipating receiving the bulk of the revenue to cover the costs of these trips.
Are we usually, like, on an annual basis, are we breaking even through our donations on all of our field trips?
It's very limited. We might, for some trips, we do break even. We fundraise a little bit more, and then there's other trips we're a little bit short. We're within 3 to 5%.
Okay.
With some of those, so it's not a drastic 50%.
Sometimes you have to cover, technically if a family can't pay, then we do have a little bit. If you look at the budget, we do budget in our expenses about $5,000 more than we budget in the revenue to kind of cover those added costs. We normally don't use all of that, but we like to have it in there as a cushion just to make sure that we're not going over our budget in the end. But usually we come pretty close to breaking even on all of our field trips.
Actually making one.
In this, if we get all of our projections, we'll make a little bit, but then some of these haven't been completely paid for yet and things like that.
We don't have a final number.
This is why Rosa did not want to put the right numbers because then you guys will say, break even. But we asked it, we requested that.
Yeah. Well, because it informs your decisions.
Yeah.
Right. All right, next slide, please.
So I do have one more question.
Sure.
When will we be having that other presentation?
So we're going to either put it on the next meeting or the meeting after that, just because it's talking about looking at the projections for the middle school and kind of what field trips. So it may get moved to the April meeting, just so that we have all of the information from the middle school before we do that, but we'll do it before the end of the school year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And during our finance committee, we did go over all of the other financial documents that are in your board packets. So if there aren't any other questions from the rest of you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, go to item number 9. Apologies in advance. We still have a few things to cover, so apologies to those of you guys who stay late. We'll do a quick round of items for action and we approve registers, December 2022 credit card register, January 2023 credit card register, January 2023 check register. It's recommended the board of directors approve action items A 1 through 3. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve A1 through 3.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Ms. Chavez. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, any questions, discussion?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and this been passed. Item number B, approve 2022-23 comprehensive school safety plans for the Saddleback Valley campus and SOC campus. California Education Code Section 32281A requires every kindergarten through grade 12 school, public charter, including community and code schools, to develop and maintain the CSSP designed to address campus risks, prepare for emergencies, and create a safe, secure learning environment for students and school personnel. It's part of LCAP action goal 3, action number 9. The funding source will come from our regular budget, and there is a nominal budget or financial impact of $3,000. I recommend the board of directors approve action items B 1 and 2. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion.
Thank you, member. Thank you, member Jackson. Any discussion, any questions?
What's the $3,000 for?
It's mostly just for any administrative costs and things like that. We just kind of put a cushion budget in there for things, meetings, supplies, things like that, that we need. That's why it's really small, but it's really just to cover any kind of administrative costs.
It's $1,000 just to print it. You see that?
Pretty
I know.
good.
I looked at the plan. I didn't look at every single line, so, but I have a question for you. What is the communication out to parents about, do we do this in any kind of foreshadowing way that if there's an issue, your reunification location will be this place? Is there any kind of forward thinking about that? Because in the midst of an emergency, that communication may not come out.
I think the plan has a place where there are people who contact.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
Contact the parents.
Yeah, so there's different people, there's like a reunification team and there's a first aid team and all of those, so. And because, because it is sort of an ongoing thing in any type of emergency. For one, we usually don't like to post those things, because if there is an emergency and we post where every single person is going, like say there's an, God forbid, an active shooter, and that active shooter knows, okay, after I go to the school, everybody's gonna be running down the street to the park.
But there is somebody.
But there is a whole,
there's a trait.
there's a whole team
And
of
will that be
people.
like a phone call that goes out to everybody, like we used to have when we used to have our Sunday message?
It depends on,
It's kind of
it
the
depends
same
on what it is.
thing.
It's part of our parent square has that ability to basically do emergency messages out to everyone. And then we have a book of, like, each year we print all of the student information cards, put them in. It's somebody's responsibility, or a couple of people's in the office's responsibility to grab that book and take it out, so we can actually individually contact parents as well. We have all of those phone numbers, even if we don't have access to Aries or computer, or something, if it's an earthquake and there's no internet and electricity, we still have that ability to know, who's parent, guardian, who's on the contact list, all of those different things. So we have a whole kind of plan outlined for all of that stuff.
And then earthquake kits and things like that. parents were supporting that back in the day and we'd send it. Now ASB does it as a fundraiser. Do we have enough for everybody? Should that not happen?
They either did it as a fundraiser or parents sent it in.
So you could pick
Yeah,
one
so
or
you
the
can
other.
pick which one you
okay.
wanted to do. Yeah.
And that was it.
I want to know how to become a fire captain during an emergency. Can I get a whistle? Can you come to campus? Actually, I did have
Get a
a
whole outfit.
All captain, all out.
I did have a question though. What is the protocol for you guys to communicate to us that there's been an emergency? Like, what is an emergency that qualifies for us to know, and how would you do that? What do we do? You know, could you don't have to tell us right now, but I think
Yeah.
some education would be helpful.
Well, one of the benefits of advanced notification is, and immediate notification is to stop people from showing up. So you don't want somebody coming to campus because you heard or somebody told you or whatever.
And because technically, because you guys are in that Parent Square group of emergency notifications, you will receive any emergency notifications that go out to parents. But usually if it's anything that is going to involve some type of school-wide emergency, I know kind of our last issue was the fire at where we had to shut down SV. Then normally before, kind of as we're in the middle of it, I was reaching out to all of you guys, kind of communicating what we were doing, what we were thinking, that we were kind of in a wait and hold, and then we were going to make the decision at 5 a.m. and we made that decision to shut down SV and kind of communicated that ahead of time. So normally it's a lot of back and forth if we have time. I mean, if there's an earthquake and then it's going to be an emergency blast out to everyone that says, here's what's happened, and here's where you can come and pick up your student, or here's the different routes that we're gonna be using. So it kind of depends on the emergency, but definitely if we have foreknowledge, like a wildfire when we had it at SV, I know I was sending stuff, text messages and phone calls to the board members like all night and into the early morning. I'm sure you guys really appreciated that 5 o'clock in the morning text messages, but
we also have a duty, right? So I just wanted to know that how to reach us, and then we would know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we also had that with COVID stuff. I mean, I think we've lived through a couple of emergencies and have given us good real life examples.
And actually it helps to, because you guys could be getting questions from people as well. So it helps
That's my answer.
that if everybody's on the same page and kind of knows what's going on and knows what we're doing about it, even if you're not telling people we're going to shut down the school in an hour, but just so that when those phone calls start coming in.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, man, we have a motion. So all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Item number C, approve the Christie-wide Accountancy Corporation proposal to provide audit and tax services to Oxford Preparatory Academy for fiscal year 2022-2023. Local education agencies need to engage an audit firm for the 2020-2023 year no later than April 1st, 2023 for education code 41020B3. Selected audit firm is familiar with the audit requirements of California K-12 LEAs and is accountants familiar with GASP and FASP pronouncements and statutory funding mechanisms. Total professional fees will be $15,950. LCAP code 3 action 11A. Funding source comes to LCFF, and there is a budget of financial impact of $15,950. So we'll have a discussion, but before that, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I'll second it. Any questions or discussion on this?
This is the same firm we've used for quite a while, yeah.
This is the same firm. So this is our last year that we'll be using this firm. The last year that we'll be using this firm before we go out to bid again. So for next year, we'll take it out to bid. We can use the firm up to six years, 5 years. We're on our 4th year. Yes. So we're actually going to, I know most of these numbers, but so we'll actually be doing it a year early, but because we use them previous, like the last time as well, we're gonna do it, go out to bid next year. It is a firm that tons of Orange County school districts use. They are super reasonable. This next time, So if we were to choose them again, then we would get a different person overseeing our account. So each time after, so it's not the same person that each, every 3 years is overseeing our account. So we would get another person overseeing it for that additional oversight. So this would just be for 1 year, and then we would go out to bid after this.
But this is already probably in the budget,
This
right?
is already in the budget.
Okay, so then this is saying no impact, it should be no impact,
No
already in the
impact,
budget. Okay. Just want to confirm that, okay. Any other questions?
So Paul, you're suggesting going forward, that it not say budget financial impact this, it should say
Well, usually we put a little line.
budget
It
amount.
says
this,
it
says-
no variance.
No.
I think that's what we've been using, and I
That's how we-
think that's why I think so. It's been-
We'll usually put already.
If there's a number like this, that means that this is incremental to what's been approved in the
Mhm.
budget, is how I understand it.
Okay, so
Already.
is there something we can do to
Yeah,
make
it's
it more
already-
clear going forward, so that,
So this one actually, the answer is, there is no budget of financial impact,
Yeah.
because it's already in the budget.
so, okay.
So usually we would put the normally, and I think it's on the next one, normally we would put the amount that it's going to cost. And then in a line after that, we would either put already in the current budget,
Excellent.
or we would put in addition to what's already currently budgeted. So that little line was just left out of this one,
But it's already in the budget.
but it's already in the budget.
Cool. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ms. Jackson? Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Thank you. Item C, approve the supplemental advisory Inc. Doing business as the Muse Group proposal for work in support of and including preparation of tax returns for employee retention tax credits. This contract proposal will enable OPA to apply for COVID relief funding through the employee retention tax credit that was made available under the American Rescue Plan Act. LCAP goal action, not applicable. Funding source will come from the LCFF. This is unbudgeted, but this is, we expect to recoup it because this is applying for funding.
Yeah.
As a sidebar note, I got an email from somebody saying you should apply for it, and then I thought I found something helpful, I forwarded it to Amy, and he's, oh. And Amy's like, oh, no, we already have an approval presented to you, so, so. I was-
Let's give it to
I was not
him.
helpful.
We hadn't already
And
done
Paul
it.
still get credit for
That
that.
was not
Yeah,
helpful.
but it was just last week, so I figured he would read right
Yeah.
through that if I just threw it in.
It's recommended the board of directors approve action item D, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion.
Thank you, member Argo, may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or
Travis beat him.
any questions?
Yeah, so what, it looks like this is all in 19%, is that right? Missing like 18.5%?
18%.
And so did we, like, what sort of?
So we were actually a little bit unsure whether we would really qualify for this, whether we wanted to go after it. So this one, I would say we did exorbitant amounts of research on. So we contacted our attorneys, had them look into whether we qualified for it. We also contacted our auditor to let them know and get their feedback about whether we would qualify, what we should do with this. And then we looked at 3 different companies to see, how they worked, what percentage they would take, whether you had to pay up front, whether they would be around for an audit, all of those different types of things. This company kind of had the most reasonable contractor, what we would, what we'd have to pay up front, how they would prepare it, what they were requiring, what kind of support they would give us throughout the process. And so, after looking at those, we selected this group. There, we want to make sure that, we didn't take PPP funding during COVID. A lot of different schools did, but as it seemed a little bit like double dipping because we weren't losing any income. Like some businesses were doing, we were still getting fully funded for our employees. Under this one, in looking at everything, it looks like we do meet the qualifications, because it did provide a disruption to the services that we were able to provide to our students. You know, we had to go out, we had to be on virtual learning. We had some additional overhead with all of the costs affiliated with, you know, staffing those virtual programs, things like that. So, so this one, it does look like we will be eligible for. And like I said, after kind of reviewing it with everyone, looking at some different companies, you know, you kind of also get a little feeling when you're talking to people about you know, how much support that they're going to give. And so this company definitely looked like, seemed like it is the best company to go with. And they are not charging us a deposit until after they've completed all of the paperwork, whereas a lot of the other companies that we looked at wanted us to pay a retainer right up front before they had even determined what we were going to get back or whether we were even going to be eligible for it. We didn't want to do that in, you know, what's 10% of something you don't even know yet.
Mhm.
So we wanted to make sure that part of that was that they had already completed all of those documents and we had a good idea of how much we might be getting back before we were shelling out a retainer. They might, you know, upfront say it's going to be $2 million and then we shell out 10% of that and we get 200,000 back. We wanted to make sure that everything was upfront, and some of the other people that we were looking at wanted that before they would even start doing any work.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
No,
Motion
I had
passes.
to record that.
I'll be there.
Motion passes 4-1. All
Yeah, you made me write an extra note.
Mhm.
Item number E, approve revision to the 2021-2023 OPA certificated and classified salary schedule. Staff has revised and updated the 2021-2023 OPA certificated and classified salary schedules with consideration of the new California minimum wage requirements for exempt employees effective January 1, 2023. These changes will be retroactive to January 1, 2023 for the 3 affected employees. LCAP goal number 2, action 1, funding source from the LCFF. For the rest of the year, you're gonna have a $10,191 impact that is not in the budget, incremental spend. May I have a motion? May I have a motion to approve action item E?
I make a motion to approve action item E.
Thank you, Member Chavez. May I have a second? Second, thank you, Member Chavez. Any questions on this?
So the minimum wage requirements for exempt, well, for all employees. And so we updated everything based on the minimum wage. We did have a few people that we had hired after we made those changes, all being exempt employees. Our minimum wage for all of our non-exempt employees meets the state minimum. But then in looking at how that is calculated over an 11 or a 12-month employee, we have some new employees and newly hired employees in new positions that then would fall under that. We were hoping to be able to not have to change the salary schedule until June, but because of some of those newly designated employees, we have to make sure that the salary schedule meets their needs, being new employees at OPA. So we are having to make a little tweak to the salary schedule for just those 2 positions for intern teacher, because we do have a teacher who's teaching under an intern credential now in one of our TK classes. And so we're actually, most school districts have done away with the intern credential column. So one of the changes is because intern teachers are technically credentialed teachers, they're just on an intern credential. OPA has historically had a separate column for them. Most districts have gotten rid of that column and put them just right on the certificated credentialed teacher step 1 column. So we're going to adjust for that. We were planning again, like getting rid of it in the summer, but for that one employee. And then our site office managers, one who we were just talking about today, we need to make sure that they are now meeting our previous office managers were high enough up on the salary schedule that they met it. And we need to now make sure that they're meeting those minimum wage requirements. So it's really just for those 2 positions that we're changing.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this?
Can we make sure that moving forward, because the minimum wage is gonna continue to go up, can we
Yeah.
just make sure this isn't that, this
Yeah.
is addressed before in the budget, so it's not after
Yeah.
this year.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number F, approve revised campus supervisor job description. Job description for campus supervisor has been revised and updated to reflect current roles, responsibilities, and requirements. LCAP goal number 2, action 1, funding source LCFF. Budget impact $19,905.12, not in the current budget. Second, the board of directors approve action item F. May I have a motion, please? Make a motion, okay, okay, I'll second it. Okay,
So this will be a position that we were looking at for the middle school, for the campus supervisor position. Also in looking at just general safety, when we looked at the safety plans, looked at, our current campuses. Since we have our middle school students on campus right now, and even just looking into the future, we thought that it would be a good idea. We right now have supervision provided by the Boys and Girls Club during times when students are not in class. So during recess times, lunchtime, we were looking at security and thought that it would be a good thing to have a full-time person on each campus that was really walking around, being able to monitor things, even being able to kind of relieve teachers if they have to go to the bathroom, things like that, but mainly just kind of along with the cameras, providing that in-person supervision all day on our campuses. And so we're updating the position and then going to staff currently for the rest of this year. That's the 19,905, one campus supervisor at each of our 2 current sites. So that's basically the salary of those 2 positions at our current sites for the rest of this school year. And then we already had budgeted for the middle school for next year, 2 campus supervisors at the middle school. So this is really just additional positions for the next couple of months for our 2 elementary schools, just to have somebody walking around monitoring all the time on campus.
So there's not intent to keep them for next school
For
year?
next year, this would be budgeted in. It's not budgeted for this year. We've already budgeted in 2 for the middle school. We'll be adding 1 at each campus in the budget for next year.
Just confirming,
Yeah.
we're gonna continue.
We're
on
gonna
next
continue
year.
on with this next year.
So there's something special about middle school that.
No, I mean, that's why we have 2 at the middle school. There's a little more supervision involved with,
Yeah, those middle school.
Especially apparently when they're going to staff.
Exactly. Didn't know that was a thing, if I had middle schoolers.
So that's why yeah. So that's why we will have 2, or we've already budgeted 2 for the middle school. But in looking at just general overall campus safety, we decided to add 1 at each elementary school as well, and not just the 2 at the middle school. Well, because we've made it, I mean, we up the amount, our old proctors that they used to be called, which they aren't a proctor, but they were paid really low and they only worked 4 hours a day. It was almost impossible to find really good people to do the job and stick around for a long time. So we have upped it and part of this job description, we have upped it to a full-time position. And so they'll get the benefits, they'll get the salary will be kind of equivalent to our instructional assistant, because they are going to have more of a campus security role. So we're hoping that it will be easier now to find somebody to fill those positions versus just the kind of minimum wage proctor that worked 4 hours a day. Because that was even hard to fill before, and now it would be impossible to fill.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 10, with committee discussion, just one item for committees.
So we wanted to kind of revisit our board committees and make sure that for when our our board charters had the correct people listed or didn't have specific people listed, but had more board positions listed so that if people shift around each year with their different board roles, we wouldn't have to change the charters each year. And then kind of just discuss, you know, what the committee setup was going to be. We can extend this, you know, through a couple of board meetings, this discussion, but we really wanted to kind of kick it off so that we could make sure that our committees were being, you know, effective and efficient and providing, you know, value to the organization and value for our board members.
So one thought is that maybe we just revisit the membership at each of the current committees and then ask the committee members to go off with staff to kind of come back with answers to your questions, which is like, what is the cadence of meetings, you know, what the scope would be, what the charter would be, and maybe a month for us to do that, like before March. Is that okay for everyone if we do that for each of the committees?
Yes, so
Okay.
we'll.
So we just go around the table and decide about each of the committees and make sure that the membership
Yeah.
makes sense, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so currently for I'll start with A, Academic Outcomes Committee, we have Amy Smith and Denali Agarwal. So are we continuing on with those two members for academic outcomes?
Is this something we want to decide today, or is this something that we have that
Oh,
period
yeah.
to figure out?
That might be a good idea.
That's why I thought we're getting an outline and these are the things to figure out before the next meeting.
So,
Okay.
but
And then
are
who will-
these
who
the
will figure it
people
out?
who are going to?
At least you guys,
working
maybe
on that?
maybe the current committee members can decide and then we can, okay, that's fine. That we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do
Okay.
that. Just
then-
one amendment to that though is that Finance Committee is now member Kagu and
Yeah,
member
I've
Agarwal.
been attending for 7 months now.
Instead and
So you
member-
Did you mark that on your parent engagement thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
You get to be permanent.
Yeah, now I'm not on probation anymore.
Yeah, now you're a permanent member, you were probationary up until this year.
Okay, so then, governance committee, academic outcomes committee, strategy and development committee, finance committee, all of us know that.
Mhm.
And so each of us take responsibility between the two committee members to convene the staff between now and March and come up with answers to, maybe Amy, you can send us a list of questions, to all of
Yeah.
us.
Perfect.
Can we discuss, okay.
Oh, so I was gonna just ask about also proposing talkable changes, right? Like or split or need to add
Yeah.
or change or.
Okay, okay.
And I think I was thinking along those same lines, like, really kind of formalize, like, what are the guardrails for each of the committees that they should be working on? And I would even look at, you know, what do you want to see this committee accomplish in year 1 and year
Yeah.
3? So we start
That'd be
creating some longitude with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Homework for us finally.
Outcomes, goals and timelines for each
Mhm.
committee.
Okay, that was a quick one. Anything else? Okay, then item number 11, executive director report.
So it's been very busy at each one of our school sites and just organization wide. Super excited to have opened our open enrollment window on February 15th. I think Mr. Brickley talked about February 15th to March 16th. Currently we've all been very anxiously watching the applications come in. I think on the first day, I opened it at 6:30 in the morning. And we already had like close to 200 and some applications. Some people applied at 12:01. So yeah. So it's been just a constant stream right now. I think that Stephanie has the exact number.
Over 2,000 are processing.
Yeah, so we have over 200, I mean, over
The ones
2,000
that are
applications
already
turned in.
submitted,
Over
1974
1974. Boy, that
are
actually went up.
submitted, yeah.
So that's between the 3 schools.
Yeah, 2 hours ago, we were at 1962, so even just while we've been in the board meeting, it's gone up by 12 applications, so.
They must be impressed with how well we.
Oh, yeah.
It's all at board meetings.
It's 212.
So yes, that is between all of our schools. We have, kind of taking out those middle school. We have 393 current middle school students who have applied. And so we're gonna keep kind of pushing that. We still have, 100 and some that we need to keep pushing to fill out their application. But like I said, we have 115 new middle school families who have applied, which is a huge number for us for a middle school program. It's been increasing every year. I remember when I got here, we were sort of negative in the middle school applications. We were just like running. So it's amazing to see now every year that increasing and being up in the first week over 100 middle school applications and new families is an amazing feat. And kudos to both of the school sites for just really having great middle school programs. So we're really kind of looking forward to seeing. We have another, we have our actually OC parenting announcement that open enrollment is open on February 27th. So we will probably see another influx of applications on that date as well. It's updated on our niche profile saying that open enrollment is happening right now. So it seems to be going really well. One thing that we added this year to our applications is a question on how you heard about OPA. So we'll get that feedback about how families are finding out about us, what different avenues are they using to find out about our schools. We always had assumed that it was mostly word of mouth, but because I think of all of the different accolades that we have been receiving, a big majority that I saw last week were saying that they heard about us through an internet search. So I think it's word is getting out there even more than just word of mouth. I think, we're popping up. If you type in, best schools in Orange County, we pop up right at the top. So I think some of that is also generating some of that excitement about our schools. But some of the big excitement about our schools is some of the great accolades that we've had. So we went along with the other 380 schools in the entire state to Disneyland on last Thursday.
After the hotel, we didn't go.
We didn't get to go to Disneyland. We got to go to the Disneyland Hotel, where they were celebrating all of the schools who were recognized as distinguished schools. Got our picture taken with Mickey Mouse and Tony Thurman, our state superintendent of schools. And it was a great celebration, lots of cool performances at that event. And then we're going to be going up. We have a couple of board members that are going to be joining us and staff members. And we're going to be recognized for being National Schools to Watch in Monterey, March 9th and 10th. And we're actually going to be presenting some of our great programs at the conference to other schools, because as a National Schools to Watch, you are considered a demonstration school for other schools around the country for having model programs that they can try to replicate. So it is more than just that acknowledgement of how cool we are, because we are pretty cool, but providing, that demonstration of what great programs look like to kind of help other schools to implement the great programs that we have going on. So, so we're really excited about that. And then we're actually going to be presenting our programs and being acknowledged in Washington, D.C. then for the National Schools to Watch in June. So, so super excited about that, and kind of just hoping that we, continue on this great path. I think it's just amazing what our schools have done and what our school staffs have done, the great programs that they've put in place, and just looking forward in the future to seeing all of the amazing things to come and being even cooler than we already are.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
We'll end it with director's report, Jackson.
I'm gonna push my minutes forward to the rest of you. But
Okay, thank you, Member Zach. Ms. Smith.
I'll be brief. Thank you again to our students, Maryland Ashley, who came tonight and participated. We always appreciate student representation. As a board member and prospective parent, I was on the information session for the lottery and application. It was very impressive. And I'm kind of comparing processes as I'm enrolling my 4-year-old with CUSD simultaneously. And so our process here seems very streamlined and I'm appreciating that.
Oh, just wait. You'll go.
Anyway, so just great work. Love seeing the team together presenting at those, and yeah, keep up the great work. Thank you.
Travis.
So congrats on all the amazing awards. I mean, I don't know, this was the first meeting since we heard officially about the schools to watch. So congrats on that. And I'm excited to see what's next. And thank you for providing all that information tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll go. Thank you for the pin.
So we all have our
I'll wear it soon.
Distinguished schools pins.
Yes. But congratulations. I mean, great job, everyone. I mean, I think the presentations today were really good. We had a really good, thoughtful discussion. You guys are doing amazing stuff in school. I know you have a big challenge ahead with middle school. So good luck with that, and ask for help if you need any help. Yeah.
I actually have nothing to add to, they covered it all, so thank you for continuing on and representing so well our school. So thank you.
Awesome. So we will go to item number 13, community input on non-agendized items. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda within the legal purview of the board of directors. Public comments, including email comments, should be limited to 3 minutes per comment with up to 20 minutes of public comment. Are there any community input on non-agendized?
There are none.
Okay, then we move to item number 14, adjournments. Recommend the board of directors adjourn the regular meeting of the Oxford Preparatory Academy Board of Directors on February the 21st, 2023. May I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, Member Chavez, may I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Member Smith. All those in favor?
all right.
Aye. We will adjourn the meeting at 9:51 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.